What's up, guys? It has been quite some time since I've done an installment in this series that I think a lot of you guys have enjoyed. I can't believe I've waited this long to bring back another episode of timeless masterpiece fragrances that you need to try. And in the past videos, I've done a whole little spiel, whole little preamble, kind of explaining my intentions, kind of laying out the groundwork for the video. I would go back to maybe the first video to really get my intentions truly fleshed out if you want to know what they are, but I'm just going to keep it simple here. I'm going to keep it moving forward so we don't waste a ton of time, but I'm talking about fragrances that are what it sounds like. These are timeless masterpieces. They smell like they could have come out at any point in time. To this day, even if they are decades old, they still smell modern. They still smell relevant. For the sake of the definition of a masterpiece, which you see here on screen, I will do what is not often done in perfumery in the market today, especially here online, and that is pairing the perfumers with the perfumes they made. Separating the perfumer from the perfume they made is like separating the musician from the song that you enjoy listening to. It's just kind of weird when you think about it. I'm going a level deeper with defining, well, what makes these masterpieces and timeless and all that? Well, I have a very simple criteria for that. There's three things that these fragrances must achieve at least one of, if not more than one. And that is they inspired a trend, or today, copies and clones. Two, they are exemplary in their genre. So maybe they are not completely new as far as perfumery goes, but they stand out among the genre they come from. And or to this day, there's still nothing quite like one of these fragrances. They stand out as something unmatched, as something unparalleled, and definitely uncopyable. Now, as I said, this is the fourth installment of this series. So there will be fragrances that you might think of where you're like,
well, what about this one? This is totally timeless. This should be mentioned.
And there's a chance that it was mentioned in one of the other three episodes. So just keep that in mind. Let that be your lens going into this fourth installment. But I'm so excited to share these 10 fragrances with you. We're going to do so in chronological order from oldest to most recent, because why not? And everything will be linked down in the description. Let's dive right into it. I've had a few people asking me why this fragrance was not included in the previous installments, and honestly, I don't know why. But perfumed by Edmond Rudnitska with the 1966 release from Dior is Eau Sauvage, the Eau de Toilette. Now, I've had this bottle for a while, probably 5-6 years, maybe more. Relatively speaking, kind of an older bottle, but definitely not anywhere near what this fragrance used to be, I'm sure, as far as formulation goes. I'm sure it's changed a bit because it's been like 60 years. So yes, we expect some change over that amount of time, but I would imagine that it still captures the magic of this scent because it still smells like something a dapper, sophisticated gentleman would wear. Maybe a little bit old school for sure. You can tell it has roots in that, but you smell it today and it still smells like you could wear this today if you want to carry this vibe. You don't have to be an old man or an older man to wear this. It's all about personality. It's all about demeanor. It's all about the energy you want to carry. And if you want something that smells clean, citrusy, aromatic, a little herbal, woody, mossy, again, a touch of this slightly mature magic to it. The quality is incredible. The performance is, it's an eau de toilette, so it's not going to blow your mind, but it is so highly functional and it's something that can really match your vibe super well. Anyway, I think this is a timeless masterpiece, fantastic scent. There's a reason why Dior is still making this and selling it. Let me know what you think of Eau Sauvage EDT. Our next pick, we're going to skip ahead quite a number of years to the year 2002. And we saw a fragrance come from Frederic Malle, perfumed by Dominique Ropion, that may or may not be a bit of a predecessor or precursor to some very seminal vetiver-based fragrances that would come after it. This is Vetiver Extraordinaire. I believe, just by spending some time with this fragrance, that I don't think we would have a fragrance like Sultan Vetiver from Gris Charnel. I don't know if we would have Grey Vetiver from Tom Ford. And I'm not even sure we would have Terre d'Hermès. Although Terre d'Hermès is a new branch on the tree as far as vetiver goes, but that branch might be connected to this one. It's hard for me to say definitively. This is all speculation, just based on my nose and obviously based on the years. But for 2002, as far as vetiver goes, again, this is not mass market stuff. This is not mainstream. This was not sitting on a counter next to Dior or Zara or anything like that. No, this is outside of the lines. This is a little bit more behind the curtain, so to speak, as far as niche perfumery goes, even though I don't think niche perfumery was really seen as a thing back then when this came out as it is today. But I can honestly say, just based on the smell, based on this earthy, spicy, green, woody vetiver, that's a little edgy. I can say that there's other great vetiver fragrances that we might have to thank this for. Now, as intense as it is as a personality, it is relatively soft in its presence. It's not a screamer. It's not going to last a super long time. It's not going to project like crazy. And honestly, I'm glad for that, because this type of scent profile, I think, is a little bit too much when it's too strong. That being said, it does remind remind me distinctly of something like Niche Charnel Sultan Vetiver, even something along the lines of Lunar Vetiver from Amouage. Both of those fragrances I would say are a little stronger than this one, especially Sultan Vetiver if you really want that super forward kind of green, grassy, woody, earthy vetiver that lasts a long time and just flies off your skin, then I would go with Sultan Vetiver. But if you want that profile a little bit more subdued, a little bit less loud, I would check out this timeless masterpiece, Vetiver Extraordinaire. Let me know what you think if you've tried it. 2004, perfumer Geza Schoen partnered up with Ormonde Jayne, with whom he still does perfumes for today. I think he's really their main guy. This is Ormonde Man. This is such a distinct style of perfumery that I can't say did not exist before this. I don't know if I know of any fragrances with this approach that came out before it. I'm sure there are some, I just haven't tried them, but there's been much that has opened up and come after this fragrance in this style, which is this not so natural smelling, but still intriguing and smooth, musky woodiness, kind of airy, a little bit ethereal, a little bit elusive, slightly spiced, fresh muskiness, a little bit of this nutty vibe in there. But overall, it wears as such a beautiful accord. All at once, it just comes together as one thing with transparency, with nuance, and it just behaves in a very specific way that does remind me of fragrances that have come since. Bulgari Tiger, or even like Vibrato. I'm not saying that those fragrances smell like this. The approach that they have, the vibe that they have, the energy, this musky woodiness that kind of dances, that's not super upfront, super direct. I don't know. Again, I'm not gonna say they did it first, but it is a seminal fragrance that came out obviously years before a lot of these popular ones. And it has spawned so many beautiful flankers that are cohesive in this style. I wanna know what you think of Ormonde Man if you've tried it. We got two fragrances coming up that were released in 2006. The first one here is from Prada. It's Amber Pour Homme. And we gotta give props to someone who did phenomenal work for Prada with a lot of their fragrances, and that is Daniela Andrié. This is the original Eau de Toilette, and maybe I couldn't say the original because it seems like this was out for a time in a slightly different formulation. Even the color was different. It was like more of a purple. I remember seeing it in stores years ago. I feel like it disappeared, and I feel like in some form it's been brought back. I don't actually know if Prada is distributing it themselves. I haven't even checked, but it is pretty readily available around the internet in this new form, which is kind of more like a bluish gray. But I can say based on my memory, it does smell like it did before. Maybe it's not as strong, but I don't recall it being super strong before, but it's soapy, ambery, resinous, soapy clean. Simple, but so distinctive. Such an interesting take on a soapy fragrance. It only had one flanker, which was phenomenal, the intense version. I have that. That one is definitely discontinued as far as I know. That one I don't think is readily available quite as much as this one. And believe it or not, this is a DNA that I did not love when I first tried it. It was soapy and clean, yes, but it was just kind of weird. I think there's a myrrh resin in here that I just was not accustomed to. This like dampness, again, slightly sweet, but not in a familiar way, at least to me back then, but I've really come around to this. When I want something clean but interesting, not super long lasting, maybe 6 hours tops, when I just want something for the day and then I can put something else on later, this is fantastic for that. And I think it really is such an iconic iteration of a soapy, clean fragrance in the designer realm. And it's one of the things that Prada does absolute best. Let me know what you think of Amber Pour Homme if you're a fan. Also 2006, Black Orchid from Tom Ford. I do believe it was their first foray into fragrances, and it predated their next fragrance, Tom Ford for Men, which came out the following year, which I would love to get my hands on that. I have tried it in the past. It's discontinued, hard to find for a good price. Black Orchid was a collaboration between David Appel and Pierre Negrin. Black Orchid, as far as I know, it was originally released for women, and it soon found its way over to the masculine side, just based on, I guess, the response from the market. Guys were reaching for this. Guys were wearing it. It is commonly known as a men's fragrance, or at the very least a unisex fragrance, and it's not for everyone. Another one that I did not understand when I first tried this. Earthy, sweet, kind of chocolatey, floral. It has a feminine quality to it, but it doesn't smell like something only a woman would wear to me. This is like dressed in all black, clean cut guy, maybe not a first date type of fragrance, someone you've been with for a while and you want to smell like something that's a little bit more provocative and very unique, even to this day. Again, a very timeless fragrance. I cannot believe it's almost 20 years old. It smells like, again, could have come out today. This is truly hallmark Tom Ford perfumery. No matter what you think about it, objectively speaking, it is iconic. 2008, another fragrance that I did not like. when I first tried it. This was too floral for me, too much rose. I wouldn't say I've now become a rose fan. I've definitely become a rose appreciator, and I can definitely appreciate when rose is done in a unique way that doesn't just smell like a bouquet. And that was Lyric Man. Daniel Vicentine is the one who gave us Lyric Man from Amouage. Lyric Man just took rose in a direction that I don't think it had really seen before. It is kind of a soapy, clean rose with this light, smoky incense with lime, musk, some spices, a woodiness behind it like pine, almost like this foresty feel that is very subdued in the background behind this clean, posh rose. Not powdery to me, more musky rose than powdery. And it has a softness to it that just lends itself to the evening. There's a gentle quality, but at the same time, it is undeniable. It has a presence, it has a richness while still being relatively fresh that really commands attention in a unique way. To this day, almost 20 years later, still stands out as something uber special. Hallmark perfumery from them. I want to know if you're a fan of Lyric Man. If you haven't tried it yet, maybe you're not a big rose fan. Yeah, don't go ahead and blind buy this thing, but grab a sample. I'll link to something down below. You gotta get your nose on it. Again, you have to try it. Whether or not you're gonna love it, you have to know what it's like. So then you know for sure, because why not? 2010. From Penhaligon's, to this day, a truly standout fragrance in this genre. I have seen people freaking out thinking that it was discontinued, but then I've heard that it's actually just been repackaged, maybe a little bit remarketed in a way. I haven't seen the new packaging. If I can find it, I'll put it here on screen. I do have this older bottle that I've had for a few years of Sartorial. Sartorial is a standout in the fougere category. Now you can tie it back to fragrances like Brut. I have seen that comparison made quite a bit. And while I haven't smelled Brut in a long time, yeah, I can see it being connected to that more old school type of very masculine, clean fougere approach. And yes, it has that here. There is a bit of this old school feel to it, something that harkens back to older fragrances in the genre, but still something that feels relevant. And Bertrand did phenomenal work with Sartorial. And what I think brings it into the modern age is the type of sweetness and other strange textures that it uses. Yes, it's clean lavender. There's a soapiness here, which is very expected of the genre, with some spices and herbs and things like that. But it's the honey that lends a rich sweetness that smells about as rich as the color of this juice. And the most unique element is that metallic accord. I think it's intended to smell like a tailor's shop, like a hot iron in a tailor's shop. That's the vibe that it brings. It is strange. If you're not accustomed to fougères of different varieties, this one really does stand out among so many others in the genre. Some people complain that it doesn't last, and I don't think it ever really was a strong fragrance, but there's a reason why it's been like 15 years that they're still making this fragrance, even though they are remarketing it. I don't think they're changing it. If you want something super dapper, very British, I would say, that's clean, but interesting in a different way from the Prada that I talked about earlier, then check out Sartorial. Grab yourself a sample, see for yourself why it stood the test of time and what all the fuss is about. From Roja Parfums, I don't have the original iteration of this fragrance, which came out in 2013, again, perfumed by Roja himself, but I do have this version of it, which I like. Enigma, also known as Creation E. What an iconic scent profile. Has inspired other things that smell similar to this, using this sparkling, rich, sweet, resinous, boozy, like whiskey, Coke, or cognac and Coke kind of feel. Definitely smells like Coca-Cola with booziness, rich, warm, sweet, woody, very elegant, very evening, very alluring, kind of intoxicating, quite literally, and just unique, just a standout personality that will stand the test of time. I hope they keep making this, even if it's just in this form. Even though it's not my favorite from the house, I can easily say, objectively speaking, it is a timeless masterpiece. We got to talk about this one. I haven't mentioned it in one of these videos, and even though it's not my favorite fragrance, even though I don't speak super highly of it these days, I have come around, I'd say back around in recent years, to be able to say with maturity, this is an iconic fragrance. This is a timeless masterpiece, no matter what you think about it. We have to say that Dior Sauvage, the Eau de Toilette, changed the fragrance world forever. This came out in 2015, perfumed by fantastic perfumer Francois Demachy. This fragrance was the hottest thing around the time I got into the fragrance community. When I jumped into the fragrance YouTube world, just as a viewer like you, and it was all the rage. It was what everyone was talking about in our small little bubble at the time. It was touted as this compliment getter and all these things, but also simultaneously, people were so disappointed in it. The community was spitting on this fragrance because it quote unquote was not living up to Dior's track record as far as being a trailblazing designer brand. People were saying it was basic, it smelled like just a regular guy, it was just so simple. But man, the wave that started from Dior Sauvage, I don't even know the number of clones or inspirations this has, probably the most ever besides Aventus. Obviously the flankers that it has continued to roll out. Dior is just continually milking this cow. And we have to just admit, it's not the first blue fragrance. That would be Bleu de Chanel, which I have talked about in a previous iteration, I believe. But man, this just did it differently. It did blue, I think ultimately in a Dior way, because to this day, it's iconic, it's unmistakable. You get one whiff of Sauvage, this is Sauvage. That spicy black pepper with the bergamot, it's undeniable. With the lavender, it's a very, very modern fougere. And I appreciate that. The more I've gotten to know it, I'm like, this is a fougere. It's an aromatic fougere, stripped down, modernized for the contemporary guy, even though it's been out for 10 years now. That being said, again, I don't really wear it these days. I reach for the elixir, especially in the cooler months. I have the Eau Forte, which I do like, and wear that from time to time, which is quite a bit different, but this still has relevance. Again, no matter what any of us think, and this is coming from one of the biggest former Dior Sauvage haters. Let me know what you think. And our final fragrance came out in 2019, perfumer Mathilde Bijaui.
What?
Whose name I'm butchering, but she has done some phenomenal hits over the years, and this is one of them. This is an iconic scent profile from BDK, one of their most unique fragrances that hit the market and has caused wildfire. They had a flanker that came out. There's been some inspirations out there. People are loving this profile because it's unique, but it's cohesive and it just makes sense. Gris Charnel. Gris Charnel is a phenomenal scent. I think some would consider the eau de parfum a little bit feminine. I think it's perfectly unisex. I enjoy wearing this. The X-Straight is definitely a little bit more masculine. If you're looking for this type of profile, beefened up, darker, again, maybe rougher, check that one out. But just a combination here of fig, of iris, tea, sandalwood, cardamom, just the way that these elements come together to create this accord that is unmistakable and just very interesting and just very pleasant and elegant. This is actually very special stuff. I think it's perfectly timeless. I would call it a masterpiece. I think she did phenomenal work with this fragrance. I don't know if they're going to continue flankers. I kind of doubt it, but at the very least, this and its flanker will most likely be available for years and years and years to come because it is that good. It is that beloved. I want to know what you think of Gris Charnel. Do you consider this and these other fragrances I've talked about to be timeless masterpieces?